For decades, the stars were close enough to see, but impossibly far to reach. Generations of dreamers stared at the night sky, whispering the same question: when will we cross that endless dark? Scientists tried, nations competed, engines burned, and still, space held its silence. Then on a quiet night inside a forgotten lab, something extraordinary happened. A group of human engineers cracked a mystery that alien civilizations had abandoned centuries ago. And when they solved it, the universe itself had to stop and pay attention. If you love mind-bending sci-fi and powerful humans are awesome moments, you're in the right place. Before we dive into this incredible HFY story, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with fellow sci-fi fans. It really helps our community grow. And hey, turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next big chapter of Humanity&AlienWars' journey among the stars. Alright, let's begin. For as long as anyone could remember, the stars had been both a promise and a taunt. Humanity looked up at them like children staring through a locked window, knowing there was something grand beyond, but never quite able to reach it. Telescopes captured breathtaking worlds light years away, blue oceans, golden clouds, maybe even life, but they might as well have been behind glass. Space wasn't just big, it was cruelly, relentlessly big. Even with our fastest engines, traveling to the nearest star would take longer than entire civilizations lasted. Generations would live and die mid-journey. It was the ultimate wall. And humanity hated walls. For decades, scientists attacked this problem from every angle. Some dreamed of colossal generational ships, entire floating cities drifting slowly through the void. Others experimented with dangerous quantum tunneling theories that fizzled out before they could even leave the lab. A few, often mocked, insisted that the answer wasn't to push harder, but to think differently. Governments threw money, corporations threw ambition, but the stars remained silent, almost smug. You could feel the frustration everywhere. In late-night cafes where young physicists scribbled equations on napkins. In crowded university lecture halls where students whispered, "Why hasn't anyone figured it out yet?" And in quiet homes where dreamers stared at the sky and wondered if the universe simply didn't want to be crossed. Then came the engineers. They weren't celebrities. They didn't work for some giant defense program or elite space agency. They were a ragtag group, a blend of stubborn geniuses, ex-military techs, and a few misfits who simply refused to accept impossible. Their lab was an old hangar on the outskirts of what used to be Houston. Half the equipment was salvaged, the rest improvised. But what they had was vision. One of them, Dr. Lena Farrow, had once said during a midnight briefing, "Warp isn't about speed, it's about geometry." At first, the idea sounded absurd. You can't cheat physics, right? But she wasn't trying to cheat it. She was trying to reshape it. Instead of accelerating a ship to unimaginable velocities, what if you could fold the fabric of space itself, like pinching a map so two distant cities touch? Sounds elegant. In practice, it was a nightmare. Every simulation ended with either catastrophic energy spikes, space-time instability, or the occasional alarming universe tears itself apart scenario. Funding dried up. Colleagues left. But Lena and her small crew stayed. Why? Because deep down, they believed the wall wasn't permanent. It was just waiting for the right knock. Their key insight came unexpectedly, during a system test that wasn't supposed to change anything. One of the junior engineers, Malik, noticed a bizarre fluctuation in the ship's experimental drive coil. At first he thought it was a glitch, but when he reran the data he realized the anomaly wasn't in the machine. It was in space itself, responding. Imagine tapping on a wall and suddenly hearing it tap back. That was the moment everything changed. They began to see patterns, tiny resonances in the cosmic background fabric. For centuries, humanity had treated space as a silent void, but it wasn't silent at all. It was humming, like a vast musical instrument, and for the first time, humans were learning to play it. The team worked day and night, often skipping meals, sometimes sleeping on lab benches. Every solved equation opened 10 new mysteries, but also 10 new possibilities. 10 new. They weren't just engineers anymore. They were explorers, standing at the edge of a discovery that could rewrite history. But with each breakthrough came risk. They knew that a single miscalculation could destabilize everything around them. The warp geometry they were experimenting with didn't just bend local space. It touched the larger cosmic structure. If something went wrong, it wouldn't just be their lab that vanished. It could ripple outward, catastrophically. Still, they pressed on, and as months turned into years, whispers began to spread. Other scientists dismissed them as dreamers playing with dangerous toys. Some governments grew nervous, fearing what would happen if a private team cracked a problem that had eluded civilizations. But others, quietly, watched with hope. Because if they succeeded, it wouldn't just change science. It would change destiny. By the winter of 2097, the wall between stars was no longer just a scientific problem. It had become personal. Humanity wasn't content to sit beneath the night sky anymore. The stars had been distant for too long, and deep inside that dimly lit hangar in Houston, a group of determined humans were about to prove that walls are meant to be broken. It began on a night that, by all appearances, seemed ordinary. A light drizzle tapped against the hangar roof, humming like distant static. Inside, the lab was bathed in a soft golden glow from worn-out lamps. The air buzzed with nervous energy. Every engineer was at their station, eyes glued to their monitors, hands trembling slightly. Not from fear, but from the weight of history pressing down on them. They had spent years preparing for this moment. Every calculation triple-checked. Every simulation pushed to its limits. Every backup system ready. There would be no second chances tonight. Lena stood at the center of the control platform, hands tucked behind her back, staring at the ship in the middle of the hangar, a sleek, almost skeletal test vessel. Its hull shimmered faintly, as if the very air around it was bending in anticipation. "Once we start," Malik muttered, adjusting a coil alignment. "There's no turning back." Lena didn't look away from the ship. "We're not turning back," she replied calmly. But inside, her heart pounded. Outside, the world had no idea what was about to happen. News networks had dismissed their work years ago. Government agencies watched from the shadows, uncertain whether to intervene or wait. Most people were sleeping, blissfully unaware that humanity stood on the edge of rewriting the laws of the universe. "Powering up the drive," announced Kira, the systems specialist. Her voice was steady, but her fingers hovered over the console like a pianist about to play the first note of a dangerous symphony. The lights flickered. Deep beneath the floor, the reactor came alive with a low, rising hum that vibrated through everyone's bones. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to shiver. A ripple spread outward from the ship, distorting the air like heat above desert sand. Instruments went wild. Monitors spiked. And then came silence. "Drive is stable," Kira whispered, almost not believing it. "Lena," Malik said, voice breaking. "The geometry field, it's responding exactly like the model predicted." She took a slow breath. This was it. Decades of human frustration, centuries of staring at unreachable stars, all led to this fragile moment. Initiate fold. The command was simple. What followed was anything but. The air around the ship bent sharply, as if reality itself had been pulled inward by invisible hands. A pulse of light exploded, not outward but inward, collapsing on itself like a star winking shut. And then, the ship was gone. No explosion, no trace, just empty space where it once stood. For 3 breathless seconds, the hangar was utterly still. You could hear the rain outside. You could hear hearts pounding. Then every monitor erupted with data streams. The ship's beacon was transmitting from outside the solar system. Not months later, not weeks, seconds. They had done it. The lab burst into chaos. Cheers, tears, laughter that bordered on hysteria. Malik threw his arms around Kira. Lena simply sat down, staring at the numbers, unable to speak. Humanity had finally broken the wall between stars. Within hours, the news spread like wildfire. Social feeds exploded. Headlines screamed, "Warp drive confirmed." Crowds gathered outside the old hangar, chanting, crying, waving lights toward the night sky. Some sang songs that hadn't been heard since the early space age. It wasn't just scientists celebrating, it was everyone. Farmers, teachers, soldiers, children, people from every corner of the planet felt it, the sudden shift in destiny. For centuries, the universe had been something humans looked at. Now, it was something they could reach. Governments scrambled to react. Alien civilizations that had quietly observed humanity suddenly paid close attention. Across the stars, sensors picked up that unmistakable ripple in space-time. Species older and more advanced than humans exchanged worried signals. Some had tried and failed to break the warp barrier. Others had abandoned the idea entirely. And yet, here was humanity. Young, reckless, brilliant, doing what others thought impossible. The balance of power in the galaxy had just tilted. That night became known as the Breaking, and it changed everything. Within a decade, humanity launched the first true interstellar expeditions. Colonies sprouted like seeds across distant worlds. Old alliances crumbled, new ones formed. And through it all, one truth echoed in the hearts of billions. The stars were no longer out of reach. Outro, emotional and conversational. Isn't that incredible? A small, stubborn team of human engineers solved a puzzle that entire civilizations couldn't crack, not through overwhelming force, not through divine intervention, but through persistence, creativity, and that uniquely human refusal to accept impossible. Stories like this remind us why HFY exists, because when humanity is cornered, challenged, or underestimated, that's usually when we shine the brightest. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with fellow sci-fi lovers. Your support keeps these tales alive and growing. And remember, somewhere out there the stars are waiting. And humanity, we're coming.